Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Are you really cocked and locked? I surely hope so, because the way our government is pursuing guns, you might want to get yours, like, real soon. Like, in an hour and 53 minutes from now. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you today?
Cocked and locked. I am cocked and locked.
I'm glad to hear that you are.
Well, Guineith, I had a question for you.
Yeah?
I was updating Linux, and it took several hours to update and replace files. So I just found out that I received talking points or an email from you. I haven't had a chance to look at it, so I'm flying without any information here. But I wanted to ask you a question about spaghetti sauce. So yesterday, after 3 months of Mrs. Finelli's intensive gardening, got some great tomatoes, put them on the counter, washed them, got all the mud off them, and then I soaked them in a large pot for 15 minutes, and washed them twice more, and then cut out the stems, cut out the little spot on the bottom, and if I saw any irregularities, I cut them out, diced them up, put them in a large spaghetti or a pot, and boiled them on the stove, and then simmered them for 15 minutes, and then decided to simmer them for another 15 minutes, and then strained them. I'm trying to make spaghetti sauce. Well, what I found out was after 3 months of gardening and 3 hours of working at the kitchen table and stove, I now have about 5 quarts of tomato juice. It's thin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the next step?
I haven't really made tomato or spaghetti sauce out of tomatoes, so I couldn't tell you. You eat it?
Well, I'll tell you what it's like.
I'll tell you what, you'd probably leave it in the cupboard for about 6 weeks, and then you'd start eating it.
I think it'll grow hair by then. if I canned it, yes. But if I just left it the way it is, yeah.
Well, I thought the canning would, be, a foregone conclusion. But yes, can it, and then put it in the cupboard for about 6 weeks, and then eat it. Start eating it. I would guess that would be the next step.
Well, what I'm saying is the viscosity is pretty thin. I mean, it is. If I had to describe it, I would say it is. After I strained it, it is, and the strainer was probably the size of a capital capital O on a typewritten page. That was about the size of the holes in the strainer. So the seeds were able to pass through, and a little bit of the pulp. And so what I really have right now is tomato juice with seeds. That's what I have. Now I'm thinking that I need to put it in a blender, but I don't have one. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do pretty quickly. It's in the refrigerator right now. Probably put it in a blender, and then the seeds will become little tiny specks. And that, I have no problem eating the seeds. But I'm wondering, what do we do to get it to become as thick as spaghetti sauce that you might buy in a jar for $1.29? What I'm saying is, a couple things. Number one, it's way more work than a person would think. Just grow tomatoes. They magically appear in the garden. Then all you do is you put them in a pot. Oh, no, you have to wash them several times first to get the dirt off them. You have to peel them. And you're looking at 3 hours, to get a full pot of tomatoes cut, cooked, and then you have to strain it. And then you've got to make your sauce because, we haven't put any peppers in there yet. We haven't put any garlic. We haven't put any onions in there, no spices. We still have to do that. So what is, I guess maybe the question for our class today is if you've ever made it. What do you do? What's the next step?
Well, I know that in commercial tomato sauces, they usually mix in what they would call a thickening agent.
Yeah.
Okay. We would call it a thickener, just ordinary people. And normally that's some kind of gelatin or starch type agent. So, for instance, if you're making a soup on the top of the stove, because soups are the staple of what we eat, but, what we call a soup, most people would not call a soup. Most people would call a pot of pasta.
Right.
But we don't call it a pot of pasta, we call it a pot of soup. Because what I do is I boil the vegetables and meat and whatever else, and then 10 minutes before we serve, I put in a cup or two of pasta. And, a cup or so, or however many it is that we're feeding, usually just the two of us these days, my son and I. And, then we boil that for 10 minutes, and so that runny soup, which if I fed that to my son and I, we would be hungry in about half an hour. We'd say, gee, that was a nice soup. Where's the next round? But
Right.
what the thickening agent does is it enables the soup to sit in your stomach. You feel full for longer. The nutrition gets more of a chance to be absorbed. And you need to figure out what sort of a thickener they use in commercial foods. You need to ascertain for yourself if that's something that's natural enough to for you to use, for you to be happy using. And some of the thickeners that are used in commercial products are actually really, really healthy. Like there's carrageen, which is what they use to thicken milk into ice cream. And carrageen is a type of gelatin that is made from a certain seaweed called sea lettuce. And sea lettuce is actually really, really good for you. I remember we used to live fairly close to the sea. We used to go down to the sea and collect carrageen. And my boys used to say, Mum, I can't believe you're doing this. This is disgusting. And I say, no, it's not. It's really healthy. It's good stuff. And you've eaten it more often than you would know because every time you eat a feed of ice cream, you're eating this stuff, which I held up this, rather unattractive-looking green seaweed. And my sons, who at that time were, 6 or 8 or 10 or years old or whatever, they were little kids. They went, hey, that was how, I educated them that this was how we do food. But there's another one, and I just forget the name of it. But what it's made from is it's made from carob seeds. Okay, now carob seeds are very, very hard. Not the pods, which are chocolate flavoured, but somehow they soften the seeds and they make them into the stuff, which I really forget the name of. It's xanthan gum. That's the name of it. Now, that's something you might be able to use because xanthan gum, that's Xanthan, is made from carob seeds. And if you go online, you'll probably be able to buy bulk lots of xanthan powder. And xanthan is amazing stuff because I don't know if you have them in the United States. So you've got these, in Australia, we have these things called Big M drinks or Master's drinks. And what they are is it's a milk drink. It comes in these long life milk cartons that you get. and they have the fold over top, and then you open the top, and then you drink the milk. The long life, and the milk stays preserved in them for a very, very long time. Well, we've got these milk drinks here in Australia, and you shake the milk drink, and it turns into a milkshake inside the container. And then you open it up once you've shaked it, and you're drinking a milkshake out of the box. And it's amazing. And my boys said, wow, how did I do that, Mum? And I said, oh, it's the miracle of xanthan gum. And if you heat xanthan gum, it thickens. But also, if you shake xanthan gum, it thickens. It's remarkable stuff. And but there are other thickening agents like that. And like I say, not all of them are bad for you. Some of them are actually, like carrageen and like xanthan, are actually really, really good for you, because they're basically natural plant products that are generally not genetically modified. Because I can't figure out how you would, although you never know with the way that scientists say, how you would have genetically modified carrageen and what the purpose of it would be, But like I say, as far as I know, it's still just sort of grown or gathered from the sea. So I think that you need to go online and maybe just bottle it for now, maybe just can it for now until you can sort of figure out how to get something like xanthan gum as an individual.
Frank Sinatra was an American singer, and sometimes he was on the big screen. And his favorite meal was something that my family called al-yaoul, which was pasta noodles with tomato sauce, which was really thin, kind of like what I made. It wasn't like jar sauce. It was actually diced tomatoes, hot peppers, and garlic, fresh garlic cut up, and olive oil. And that, what you would do is you would, in a small saucepan, put a small amount of water to prevent the oil that you're going to add next from overheating. Put a small amount of water, maybe like a tablespoon, some olive oil, garlic, a little bit of red pepper, crushed red pepper, and you'd heat it in a saucepan, and you would pour that on the pasta noodles, and you would pour the diced tomatoes on top as well. And that was Frank Sinatra's favorite pasta meal. And I'm thinking that this sauce that I made, if I either remove the seeds or put it in a blender, would be perfect for that. And I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's what I'm going to do. And a lot of the products in the United States use xanthan gum in them for a thickening agent. They also use cornstarch. So again, you've hit the nail right on the head. When we come back, Guineith, would you like to share with us how you were almost robbed? Would you like to talk about that? While you were traveling? Yeah, let's talk about how you were almost robbed. We'll be right back. So you were almost robbed while grocery shopping in Bendigo, Australia.
Yes.
A large tattooed man walked up to you. What happened?
Okay. I was actually just minding my own business. I had my guard down because it was a public street. It was the middle of the day. It wasn't a dark night or anything like that. And I was just standing outside our local Red Cross shop, which is, a thrift shop that's in town. And, the proceeds of that shop go to support the Red Cross. And so I said, they do some good work in this world, Vincent. They're not perfect, but they do things like first aid and, disaster relief and all that. So I buy things from there sometimes, and especially books. They have a lot of cheap books. at this particular Red Cross shop. So I was looking through their book stands that they had outside, and this guy came up behind me, and he said, "Excuse me, could you tell me the way to such and such a park?" So I sort of looked at him. It's just a moment of incomprehension of like, what? And then he repeated himself, and I said something like, "I don't know. You'll have to ask somebody else or something, you know." And then and then this other guy came up, and you know, both of these men were quite large. I mean, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm not tiny, but these guys were large. They were, you know, dressed in dirty clothes. They had beards. They had tattoos. Both of them, and they were obviously bad-looking guys. And then the other guy came up and stood next to this guy, and he said, "Oh, I can tell you the way to the park." And he said, "Oh, really? Oh, how do you get to the park?" And I took that opportunity just to get my little shopping trolley and to quietly make my little exit and head towards the supermarket. A very, very well-known tactic of bandits is to, you know, come up to somebody and get them distracted with something like a set of directions, giving out a set of directions or something like that, and the second person comes along, and stupid me, I shouldn't have done it, but I had my handbag on my shopping trolley, and I should not have done it. But I did, and thankfully, I got my shopping trolley and with my handbag, with all my cards, my phone, and all the rest of it out of there. You know, with this strategy, the first one gets the person into a conversation, distracted, and then the second one takes the valuable right from under the nose. Okay? Yeah, it's a really, really, really old tactic, and it's actually a variation on something that I detailed back in the day when I had my newsletter. Called the buttock and twang, and back in the day, a man would be out and about during the evening, and he would meet a woman, and the woman would distract him with her buttocks, and then he would be looking at the woman's buttocks, and then her supposed boyfriend or husband would come along and pretend to be all jealous and then hit him over the head, and then they would rob him and take his pocketbook or his wallet or whatever he had. You know, and the guy would usually be so embarrassed that he wouldn't dare even to report the theft. But it's a variation on that, you know. But the thing is, with this type of thief, they're exceptionally dangerous, because if a woman is not aware of what's going on, she might actually point out to the, you know, and if she's extremely ignorant, she might offer to take them to the park. And of course, she should never ever do that, because these people, you know, you should
hold that
be
thought. Guineith, did you have something else you want to say about that, or do you want to hear my comment?
Okay. I was just going to say that if he had taken my purse, I think he would have found out that he had bitten off a bit more than he thought he was biting off, because I would have chased him down. I would not have just allowed, or you know, or if I had seen him, I would have made a scene. I would have chased him down. I would have gone, "Stop, thief!" And if I'd caught him, I would have jumped on top of him, and I would have kicked and fought and screamed and said, "I want my bag back! Give me my bag back!" etc., 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 etc. You know, And, of course, that would have been a dangerous situation for me, you know. But in that sort of situation, that's, you know, I know that the police don't advise you to do that, but I would say that's something I would personally do because I value my stuff. And I'm not just going to let some random guy come along and take my things away from me. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Absolutely. I was in a similar situation in the United States. I was traveling with our son, and we were pulling a trailer with a 3/4 ton truck. And I don't help people the way I used to, especially people I don't know. I mean, I used to help everybody, not anymore. They've taught me that I don't need to do that. So I was with our son, and we had pulled into a fast food joint. And we don't eat fast food very often. I mean, hardly, if ever. And we stopped in to wash up and get a cup of coffee. And our son was at the counter ordering the coffee, and I sat down at a table waiting for him. And I'm situationally aware. I pay attention to everything that's around me. I sit where I can see the doors. I can see who's there. I sit where people can't get behind me, you know, those kinds of things. And so I was sitting at this table. There were very few people there. And after a while, this seedy-looking, bad-looking guy came up to me. And he asked me for directions, the same thing that happened to you. And I decided that this would be my response. I just looked at him. I stared at him. I did not say a word. I did not let him know whether I spoke English or whether I understood a single word he said. I just looked at him. And I looked at him. And by the second, my appearance was I was getting more and more and more angry. Kind of like a bull snorting, you know, just before he launches. Yeah. And it looked like, from his perspective, I was going to come unglued right then and there. Absolutely come unglued and start swinging right then and there. He only had like a couple seconds before that happened. That was the impression I gave him. And he apologized to me and he said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then he sheepishly left.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't say a word. So if the police came, you know, let's say they showed up, they could say, well, this guy threatened him. This guy said, I didn't say a word. I didn't get up. I didn't say a word. But you could see that with my body language, you know, I was, you know, just starting to, my fists were starting to get a little tighter, you know, starting to position my body so that I was going to spring into an attack. And that's how I responded. Because now, do I know this guy? No. Do I know if he was a threat? No. Do I think he was a threat? Yeah. Do I think he wanted more than just directions? Oh, yeah. Yeah. He wanted money. He wanted whatever I had. He was interested in helping relieve me of that. And it wasn't going to happen. You know, this guy was sweaty. He was dirty. His clothes were filthy. He was not the kind of guy that you'd want to give a ride to. You know, maybe that's what he wanted. Oh, so you know where it is? Oh, good. Can you give me a ride there? So yeah. I did not engage him at all.
Yep. Yep.
So that's my approach now. I'm not interested in pulling over and helping people on the side of the road whom I don't know. Because there are so many traps. You know, there's so many pretty girls who are being used as the tool to lure people in, to rob them and hurt them and steal their vehicles and things like that. So I'm not going to be in a position to be carjacked if I can help it. I'm not going to be in a position to be relieved of the things that I've earned for my life to help somebody I don't know. I don't know them. Now, years ago, I would never have said that. Oh, I want to help people. Well, they have taught me, especially the trolls. The trolls have ruined it for everybody. The trolls have ruined it. They've encouraged me to take down our website. They've encouraged me to stop taking phone calls on the air. They've encouraged me to not have any expos. They have ruined it for everybody. Just a few slimy, creepy parasites. Just a few. But because of them, I haven't released my book. You know why? Because if I sold the book for $10, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't take $10 because I wouldn't want them to have it. I wouldn't take $100 because I wouldn't want them to have it. I wouldn't take $1,000 or $10,000 because I wouldn't want them to have the information in my book. That's how I feel about these parasites. And it's unfortunate. There was a movie that Mrs. Finelli and I watched. It's very interesting. The movie is terrible, but I want to tell you a little bit about it. It's called Prepper, Prepper. Someone gave us access to their Prime Video. It comes with the Prime subscription. So someone has a Prime subscription, and they said, "Here, you can have the video portion, so you can watch some videos for free." Well, there's one called Prepper, and there's this. If you look at the DVD cover, I can see it on the internet. It's this black guy with a baseball bat, and he's ready for war. And his wife has got a rifle or a shotgun in her hand, and so he's a black guy, tall black guy. She's a shorter white gal. The neighborhood's on fire. The world's on fire, and it's called Prepper. And so he's a high school teacher. He's living a typical suburban life. His wife and he know nothing about preparing anything. They've got, when they have dinner tonight, that will consume their entire food supply. And they're going to have to start over tomorrow. And then tomorrow, it's just rinse and repeat of what happened today. So they don't have any supplies. And he's a teacher in high school, and he's got the typical high school class. He's got blacks and whites, and they've got the gay black guy with the bouffant hairdo, and I mean it's everybody. It's there's something in it for everybody. Parasites, pedophiles. I mean, it's all right there. Homos, and then a few straight people. So that's the environment he's teaching. He's trying to teach these children about Ebola and could it come here. And so he's sitting in the teacher's conference room with other teachers, and they're talking about, he brings up Ebola, and then all of these learned experts who are highly educated high school teachers don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. And they follow whoever the leading speaker is at the moment, and they shift their thoughts based on whoever says what next. So you learn, and what you really see is what people are really like. And what it is, it's really kind of, the way I take it, it's a satire on preparedness-minded people, how stupid we are. Because everything's fine, you don't have to worry about anything. And then the lights go out. And then you have then this black guy teacher and his wife are looking out the window. The lights are out. It's the next morning. And the neighbors, who he didn't even know the name of, who he didn't even like, is being held hostage with his wife on the front yard by a bunch of thugs. Kind of like the people who wanted to relieve you of your possessions while you're shopping. Kind of like that, except they had handguns to the heads of the neighbors. And then the teacher and his wife come out. They learned how to shoot a gun at the range. And the teacher decides he's going to help these thugs. He says, "Hey, I've got some food for you." He's got 2 number 10 cans, a jug of water, and a bag of rice. And he says, "This is for you. This is a gift for you. Just leave." And so the thugs shoot twice at him. And his wife decides this is kind of serious, so she shoots one of the bad guys. And then off from a distance, a neighbor with a rifle shoots another one of these bad guys. And then pretty soon you realize that the neighborhood has just come together. People who didn't know each other have come together. And then by the end of the video, they've got a couple of machine guns and they're ready to take on the world. It is a satire. I don't think it was supposed to be, but it really is to show you how stupid we are. We, in the preparedness mindset, how stupid we really are. First of all, they're not going to get a machine gun. Okay. Second of all, it's overreacting. Third of all, just having 2 weeks worth of food is not enough. They knew nothing about preparedness. Nothing. They knew nothing about land. They knew nothing about gardening. They knew nothing about canning. They knew nothing about how long food lasts. They didn't even know that water doesn't last forever in a jug. You have to put some kind of a anti-biological in the water, like a drop of chlorine or something like that. They didn't know anything about preparedness. And they are depicted as the learned, highly educated suburban set. And so if you get a chance, class, to watch that, it's called Prepper, Prepper, 2016. It's rated 5.6 out of 10 stars. The acting is lousy. It's low budget. But if you want to see what people think of us and what the GDP really looks like, I suggest you consider watching it. But really don't follow their lead, because at a prepper level, they're at a 1 out of 10 at most. So I just wanted to share that with you. So Guineith, there was a pretty interesting experience that you had. It was a good learning experience.
It was really, really educational.
Right.
Because, it's something like I didn't quite realise that things had sunk to that low. I mean, like 6 months ago or a year ago, it would have been beggars on the street. That took a bit of adjusting to, and now all of a sudden it's robbers.
Yeah, that's why I said if you don't have one, get one and get ammo for it as well. Guineith, what's next?
Okay, well, I would just like to, say, in closing with regards to these two bandits, it's obvious that they've picked that as their little spot, okay? But what
Can you speak a little closer into your telephone, please?
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Yeah, it's a little better, yes.
We've actually got rain coming on the outside. That's probably the background noise you can hear.
I can hear you much better now. That's perfect. Whatever you're doing now is pretty good.
Now, these bandits, what they're not taking account of, they think that they've got a good spot because they've got a few small shops and they've got an alleyway that leads to a supermarket and a car park. They think they're going to be able to have their way. But what they've got to take account of is that, I'm now going to tell all the shopkeepers in that district to watch out for these two. And some of these people, let's just say they're Asian. And let's just say Asian people, maybe got some martial arts skills. Let's say that some people, might have other skill sets and if everybody's aware of what these two really evil people are like, it's not going to make their life so easy, is it, Vincent? I'm not going to bother going to the police. The police are not even interested, and this is getting into the next topic on our menu for today. But the police are not interested in catching these sorts of guys because they're just paperwork. They're just, they catch these bandits, they put them into prison, and the bandits, they get out of prison, and they want to go and hunt down the policemen that put them there. And that's just how it is. And the police are aware of this. They're not interested. They'd rather just run their own cartel. Anyway, I would like to take this as an opportunity to segue into the next topic, okay? which is about another bunch of criminals that infest our society, and that is state government bureaucrats, parliamentary staffers. You know, parliamentary staffers are a really, really interesting little creature, because you know what a parliamentary staffer does? Most parliamentarians, right up to and including state governors and state premiers, could not manage their way out of a paper bag. Okay? That's the saying that we have here in Australia. It means that they're so clueless that if they don't have somebody to tell them what to do, they're going to fail. They're up there to be the smiling face that looks good in a suit. Okay? They can speak well if they're given the lines, but if they're not given the lines, they generally don't have a clue what to say. And so they rely almost utterly on their parliamentary staffers. They can scarcely wipe their own backside. You know, they just about have to have somebody to hand them the roll of toilet paper. And, you know, this is it. They're just total imbeciles. They've never done anything else other than be politicians in their whole life. And at the moment here in the lovely, sunny garden state of Victoria, supposed to be, the parliamentarians have got a problem in that their parliamentary staffers have gone into revolt. They have spat the dummy. And you know what, Vincent? It's just absolutely amazing to watch, because the parliamentary staffers are complaining that they are not getting enough income off of their work of coddling and nose-wiping, writing speeches and Facebook posts for their political masters. And their salary or paycheck starts with the very lowest paid, most menial of these parliamentary staffers. This would be the girl who shines her fingernails while she's waiting for the phone to ring, and while she's waiting for somebody to appear so that she can show them, you know, and be a hospitable host to them and make them a cup of tea and give them a donut or a cream bun or whatever while they're waiting to see their favourite politician. You know, these people, the very starting salary is $75,000 a year before tax, and they're all on subcontract, which means that basically they get that cash in their hand, and if they invest it properly, and if they minimise their tax, probably there won't be any tax, you know, because they're all educated in the same method of, you know, tax minimisation that you and I have been pointing out all these years, because they all use it.
Yeah, Guineith and I will be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Guineith Isaacs. Guineith, in the United States, we have the Boy Scouts of America, BSA, and our boys were members of the Boy Scouts. I remember being in the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts when I was younger, and it was a great thing. You learned about nature. You learned about how to be a nice person. And now what's happening is there are more and more details emerging about the Boy Scouts, and they call it the perversion files. Thousands of Boy Scout leaders, thousands of I can see that I just dropped out. Let me repeat that. Thousands of Boy Scout leaders face child sex allegations. Thousands. And this goes all the way back to the 1940s. So we have these pedophiles as scout leaders since the 1940s. And of course, more and more victims are coming forward. Now, they say that of these thousands, the names are going to be released of the offenders. Nearly 200 of them are from the states of New York and New Jersey. And this is from an article on NBCNewYork.com. This is mainstream. So they have these Boy Scout jamborees where thousands of boys go, and they go to a Boy Scout camp, if you will, and they've got hiking and fishing and sailing and they go out in rowboats, and they practice archery. They practice. I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah.
I still couldn't hear you. Could you speak closer to your phone?
Free condom.
Well, I still didn't hear what you said. Well, here's what happens. Those boys get approached, and even when our boys went, they said, "Dad, there's a lot of sick puppies out there," meaning men who are very interested in boys, and they never wanted to go back from what they had seen and heard. So my advice to those of you who are thinking about enrolling your children in Boy Scouts, it used to be something a lot better than it is now. And now you are putting your child at risk by enrolling them in the Boy Scouts. You may think you know what's going on. You've got a neighbor who's in the scouting, but is your neighbor who you trust going to be with your child at all times? And then another thing, if you decide that you want to support the Boy Scouts by, donating money to them, where do you think that money's going to go? It's going to go to paying the victims. It's going to be used to pay off the lawyers. And that's not what it was supposed to be for. The Boy Scouts was supposed to be clean, reverent. I mean, really good morals being taught at the Boy Scouts, but yet it's been invaded by a bunch of pedophiles. Now, there are some really good Boy Scout leaders, no question about it. I've met some of them. I know some of them. However, the Boy Scouts has been invaded. So if I think about Boy Scouts, now I think about pedophilia. And imagine this. Imagine with all of this breaking news about the Boy Scouts over the last decade, if you were a Boy Scout and you were applying for a job and you thought, well, let me put on my resume that, I'm a member of the Boy Scouts, or I was an Eagle Scout, or something like that. What is the first thing that's going to come to the mind of the person interviewing you? Gee, I wonder if he's been abused. I wonder if he likes being abused. Maybe we shouldn't hire this guy because he was a Boy Scout. So it could turn a positive thing into a negative thing because of, and it's the same ilk as the internet trolls. A few people just destroy so much good because they're so sick. There's a video series called Heartland, Heartland. It's filmed in Canada. It's been running for well over a decade. It's a long-running series. If you want to know what my life is like and the Finelli family life is like, you can watch Heartland. It's about a cattle farmer, his family, his the grandfather, the father, son-in-laws, daughters, granddaughters. They all live on this farm. And it's the heartaches, the joys of being a farmer. It's watching animals die. It's watching animals get hurt. It's watching animals that are hurt being healed. And one of the main characters in this series is a girl by the name of Georgie. And Georgie is a teenager. And she's lived on this farm. She had a rough start. She was adopted into this farm. And she's well loved, and she loves the family. And the family raises horses and trains horses, as well as raises cattle. It's a Canadian farm. It's a tightly knit family. They've got their problems. But so Georgie is quite the person to be on a horse. I mean, she's outstanding for her age, outstanding. And the family raises and trains horses and fixes horses that need, attention. Breaks the horses, trains them into being jumpers and so forth. Well, so Georgie is practicing for the annual competition. She's a teenager. The horse gets a sprain and throws Georgie off the horse while jumping. Somebody videotapes it or videos it. It ends up on the internet, and then the trolls come out. And the trolls say that she has no business being on a horse. She shouldn't, she doesn't know what she's doing. And I'm paraphrasing, she's a menace to everyone around her, the horse, and she should not be in this. And these are people who don't really even know her. They're just a bunch of trolls jumping on board to beat her up. And what I'm saying is these trolls are useless. They're absolutely useless. And there was and it really hurt this girl, this teenager, because she was being abused online by anonymous people who make up names for themselves, people who can hide behind the keyboard. And they were just rough on her. And it almost destroyed her passion for horses until she figured out that she wasn't going to let these nameless, faceless parasites interfere with her life. And she became stronger as a result of it. And we all have. All of us have become stronger as a result of these parasites. And I just want to tell you that there may be parasites in your child's life, parasites from school. You know, we used to call them bullies. Now bullies can hurt people remotely, people they don't even know. And I have the least regard for trolls of anything on the planet. I can't think of anything lower than an internet troll. Nothing. Homosexuals are above internet trolls. And I don't think much of homosexuals. And by the way, Guineith, I think I'm the last male on the radio to keep this stance about homosexuality being a perversion. You know, other people are saying, well, you know, it's an alternative lifestyle. Well, you know, what people do in their own privacy is, you know, up to them. And I'm saying, no, I don't want I don't want these parasites around me, the internet trolls, and I don't want homos around me either, because I think their behavior is risky, and I don't want their risky behavior infecting my life and my family's life. How do you feel about that, Guineith?
Well, history is clear. Homosexuality dooms society. That's just how it is, you know? And, you know, I have to go in. I know I've said this before on your show about, in my past life, about how I was George Wilson, and how George Wilson was a female who was cross-dressing as a male. That was for economic reasons. And, you know, but even so, when I look at homosexuality, it churns my stomach. It makes me feel really, really icky inside. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah, I had a boss. Many years ago who was a homo, and every once in a while we'd have to call him because we'd have to get permission to do something at the corporate level, and we'd be working late, and we'd call him up, and he was living with this guy, and sometimes his boyfriend would answer the phone, and we'd ask to talk to the boss, and he'd pass the phone across the pillows to his boss. It was disgusting. It was disgusting. And that's the truth of the matter. And, it's like, okay, we got to call the boss. You call him. No, you call him. No, you call him. No, you call him. What did I do? Why do I have to call him? I mean, nobody wanted to call him.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, because it just, it's something where, you know, people, it's against nature You know, when God made the universe, he made a polar universe, okay? He made male and female to go together and to form loyal pair bonds, you know? And the thing is, the whole thing of marriage has been so much taken over by the state, it's become almost unrecognisable from what its original intent was. The original intent of God in marriage was for a man and a woman to meet, to form a bond of, first of all, friendship, and then of love, and then of intimacy, and for them to actually spend the whole rest of their lives together. And that was the original intent of marriage. And in the ancient world, when you know, if you read in the Bible, it talks about concubine, so-and-so and his concubine, and then in the very next paragraph, it calls the woman his wife, you know, and it calls her father, and the son, you know, the husband or the boyfriend, you know, calls the father of his beloved father-in-law, you know, and this is in the Bible. So, and this was at a time when there wasn't so much, there wasn't an established police force, there wasn't a king, there wasn't a government, and there wasn't a parliament. And basically, people went with what their conscience said. And
we'll be right back. We're going into a break, and we'll be right back. There's an article in the Daily Mail about the Boy Scouts. And the Boy Scouts of America has been accused of covering up reports of sex abuse in this massive new lawsuit, detailing accounts from nearly 800 young members against at least 350 alleged pedophile troop leaders. So who would be a good troop leader? Would you say, teachers, doctors, police officers, and mayors? Quote, this is in the article, quote, many of the alleged abusers implicated in the lawsuit that was filed on Monday in Pennsylvania State Court alleges that abuse continued over 8 decades, 48 states, 8 decades in the United States. Quote, many of the alleged abusers implicated in the suit were prominent members of their communities, including teachers, doctors, police officers, and a mayor, end quote. So, when you think about sending your young boy to the Boy Scouts, well, his scout leader is a teacher, or a doctor, or a police officer, or a mayor. That would induce you to thinking that, well, this is going to be good, you know, because these are prominent people in the village, right? The suit says that 57-year-old plaintiff alleges that his former scoutmaster plied him with alcohol and drugs and abused him hundreds, let me say it a different way, hundreds of times over a 4-year period during the 1970s in Pennsylvania. Now, to be abused hundreds of times over a 4-year period means like once a week. Now, what comes to my mind is a guy named Buford Pusser. And he was a peace officer, carried a baseball bat. And I'm thinking that a Louisville Slugger would be kind of what I might have in one of my hands if I found out that something like that happened to one of my boys. The other hand might have, I don't know, something different. But maybe one hand might have a Louisville Slugger. I would be livid. And the Boy Scouts? How can this happen for 8 decades, 80 years, 80 years? Obviously they looked the other way. Obviously they covered it up. How is it possible? How is it possible that the leadership could not know that so many in one article, 12,000 boys were sexually abused. Not 12,000 incidents. 12,000 individuals, boys, were abused by these pedophiles. Now, how is it possible that the leadership didn't know this? It's not possible. They did know. So, are you going to encourage your boys to be Boy Scouts? I would never do that, knowing what I know now. However, it used to be a great, well, philosophically, it was a great organization. Be kind, clean, reverent, helpful, courteous, right? That's what Scouts were. Now they're victims. I think we need to clean up society. You know, and I'm not advocating violence. I have to say on the radio, or I'll get thrown off. Oh, I don't recommend violence. No, I don't recommend violence. There was about 38 years ago here in Missouri, there was this guy. He made the news. I'm paraphrasing. And he was a menace, an absolute menace to his village. He pushed his weight around, he carried a gun, and he was menacing with it. Well, the village had it with him. They'd had it. One day he was shot. There were, maybe 40, 50, 60 people there when he was shot. The amazing thing is nobody saw anything. They were all there, but they never saw anything. They must have been looking the other way. And to this day, no one has spilled the beans as to what happened to this menace. But they killed him. They took care of it the old-fashioned way. This guy was a menace, and they dealt with it right here in Missouri. Just another article, MSN. This is mainstream news. MSN.com. Quote, headlines, quote, Boy Scouts have a pedophile epidemic and are hiding hundreds in its ranks, lawyers claim, end quote. So, class, unfortunately, the Boy Scouts have been invaded, and it's really sick. It's really sick. So, heads up, if you have a child in Boy Scouts, I'll tell you what, if I had a child in Boy Scouts and I thought that it might be okay, as a mother or a father, I would say to the Boy Scout leader, tell you what, I'm coming to your meetings. My child is a minor and I don't trust the Boy Scouts of America. I'm coming to the meetings. And if they say no, you say, okay, no problem. We're out of here. We're out. We're done. Simple as that. Guineith, any quick comments?
Okay. When I was a child, I was in the Girls Brigade, and I think that all of these organisations have got similar problems. The Girls Brigade leader, her husband once tried to buy me with sherry, and I had some instincts pretty well developed at an early age, I think. He said it was sherry, and then he said it was Ribena, and then he said it was sherry. Ribena is like a blackcurrant cordial, okay? And I refused to drink it. And I think I pretty well decided after that I'd better go home. And but it didn't surprise me when many years later, this same man that tried to ply me with sherry was bashed to death in his own bed with a baseball bat by an intruder. And it was made out in the press to be a random attack. But, Vincent, the more I think about it, the more I think that maybe it wasn't such a random attack after all.
Think maybe it was an angry parent, an angry brother, an angry godfather?
I think that it was an angry somebody who knew what had gone on. And, all that I know is my own memories But the more I think about it, the more I think to myself, mate, that man, he was just a really strange, dirty old man. And what the hell was he even doing with his wife basically running the local girls' brigade? Well, why was she allowed in that position when he was, looking back, with adult eyes, the husband being such a dirty old man, and yet the wife was allowed to run the local girls' brigade. Mm-hmm. It's just unconscionable in hindsight.
Boy Scouts of America was founded in 1910, 110 years ago, roughly. And in 2016, it had about 1.25 million Cub Scout members. Had a little over 800,000 Boy Scouts. How many volunteers did it have, adult volunteers? Almost 1 million. Almost 1 million adult volunteers.
Wow.
For a little over 800,000 Boy Scouts. You got to ask yourself, what? How come so many volunteers? How come there are more adult volunteers, almost 1 million adult volunteers for about 800,000 Boy Scouts? How come? Why? It's unbelievable. So there's something wrong here. There's something wrong. Here's an interesting story, and it's the same thing. This is headlines in Daily Mail. San Diego cop is 49 years old. He's accused of soliciting a minor for sex. He's found dead from self-inflicted gunshot wound after failing to turn up in court. San Diego police sergeant, let me say it a different way. A sergeant. He's the guy that tells, the new officers what to do, right? The street cops. He tells the street cops what to do. San Diego police sergeant Joseph Ruvido, accused of trying to meet a child for sex. He's also suspected for attempting to commit lewd acts with a child between 14 and 15 years old. He didn't show up to court. They found at his home, they found his body. Self-inflicted gunshot wound. So it goes on to say that he was a sergeant. He was accused of soliciting a minor for sex who was found dead in apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound after failing to appear in court. He's a 21-year veteran of the force. Oh, that's what those guys use. They use force. Police force is what they use. He was accused of arranging to meet a minor for sex. He's 49 years old. A sergeant. And so he was arrested. And they sent a heavily armed SWAT team to his home in Carmel Valley, California. He didn't answer the door. And he was found dead. So, just because a guy wears a uniform, whether it be a Boy Scout leader's uniform, whether it be, a police uniform, whether it be a doctor's coat or a mayor's sports jacket or suit, doesn't mean they're not pedophiles. I'm not saying all of them are. Of course, they're not all. But how did this happen? How did we get people in positions of leadership? How do we let them infiltrate? Who's responsible? Well, that would, in the school system, that would be the superintendent of schools. That would be the principal of the school. That would be the assistant principals of the school. That would be the school board. And as parents, if you find out, if you suspect if you think that someone is suspect of being a pedophile, you need to take action. And I think the action should start with contacting the superintendent and saying, hey, here's what I've learned, here's what I've observed, and you've got, just want you to take plenty of time to investigate. I'll be back in 2 days. And if we don't have a satisfactory response, I'm going to bring the rest of the parents of this class, and we're going to meet with you. And we're not leaving until we get answers and action.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what else you can do, Vincent. This is something that I would do in that situation, okay? I would pull my children out of the classes. And when the school contacted me, I would say, I really strongly suspect that this person is a child abuser, and I'm not putting my child in harm's way. And, you know, and they'll say, oh, well, we're going to send CPS to you, and what you need to say at that point is, you do that, and I'm going to sue the school. And you watch them run away with their tail between their legs as soon as you mention litigation against the school. Okay? Because they don't want all of this coming out in affidavit testimony in a courtroom. That is absolutely not what they want. And that is something in the past that I have done with my children when I have found that the school has not been taking due diligence in that area, when they have been allowing people who are not sexually right to have access to the children in the school. Whether other people should do that or not, that's up to their judgment, and I'm not telling anyone what to do. But that's what I personally have done in the past with my own children. And in my mind, short story. That's the right thing to do.
Tell you a short story. When I was a teacher, I taught juniors and seniors in high school, computer science. And we had a manufacturing assembly line set up in my classroom. My classroom was huge. It was the largest room in the school. It was a cafetorium, which is like an auditorium / cafeteria. It was huge. It's the size of a gymnasium in a high school. And I had students all over that particular room because we were manufacturing computers. We were writing manuals. We were talking to customers. We were building networks. We had lots of operations going on in this large room. And one day, I saw a teacher from another building, the high school teacher, in my classroom with one of my students sitting at one of the tables across the room. I looked over, and I walked over to him. This is during the school day. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, and he was 40, roughly 40 years old, and she was maybe 17. He said, well, she's got some personal problems, and I'm helping her. I said, oh, get out. And I threw him out. He's not going to do that in my class. Now, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that they were having an affair. They ended up getting married. So there you have it. There you have it, right in my classroom.
Oh, my
now,
gosh.
He lied. Well, maybe he didn't lie. Maybe he lied by omission. He probably was helping her. He probably saw that she was having some problems, and he was helping himself because of her problems. And maybe he was helping her as well. But maybe he used that situation to, wiggle into her life. What I did as a teacher, to make sure that no one ever accused me of theft. I mean, we handled $1 million, $1,200,000 in my classroom in a year. And to make sure that no one ever accused me of stealing or theft or anything, I never handled any money, any checks, anything. I wouldn't do it. And I said, look, if I want to buy a different vehicle, I don't want someone to say, I know where that money came from. So I never touched any money whatsoever. And that was a deal that I made with the superintendent, my boss, that I would never handle money no matter what. Someone could hand me a check and I'd say, don't give that to me, give that to this other teacher over there. And I made sure that I was never alone with a student without another teacher being present. Never. And that's the way I handled it. Yeah. So it can be done. You can show students that you love them without physical contact. You can, yeah, you can do that. We come back, Gwyneth. I'd like to just tell a story about a guy in a wheelchair with a sign that says "Anything Helps" in Texas, Abilene, Texas, and he's on the street in a wheelchair, and what he's doing. Just got an email from one of our fellow broadcasters. I don't have his permission to use his name, so I won't. But he just sent me an email. It says, in the early 1970s, over homosexual predators, this young man's mother would not let him be a Boy Scout. Then he says, a good call. Protect your children. And that's what we've been talking about today. So if you're wondering, what in the heck does preparedness have to do with talking about these homosexual predators? What I'm trying to tell you is you need to be prepared. You need to protect your children. It's not just about having more stuff. It's not just about having more toilet paper, more rope, more candles, more kerosene, more generators, more fuel, more tires, more spare parts, more skills. It's about being situationally aware of what's happening around you and thinking and protecting yourselves. I would feel pretty terrible if I could have protected our children from a predator and I didn't. I'd feel pretty terrible about that. And just like that guy with the baseball bat, I have an awful feeling I would come unglued with the knowledge that happened. Should that have happened. But I wanted to mention this is in the area of Abilene, Texas. So there's this guy sitting in a wheelchair, and everyone feels sorry and bad when people have to use a wheelchair. It's just it's an emotional thing to see it. So this guy looks dirty. He looks filthy. He's in a t-shirt. He's in tan-colored long pants in an old wheelchair. He's got this piece of cardboard, well-used sign, handwritten. It says, anything helps. He's holding up this sign. He's got a wristwatch on. It's just nothing, not like a Rolex. But this guy looks tan, short sleeve t-shirt. And he's out on the street in a wheelchair, and he's got the sign that says anything helps. He brings in about $1,000 per weekend. That's $52,000 a year, working 2 days a week. He's not homeless, and he's not handicapped, and he doesn't need a wheelchair. He's a liar. He's a thief. He's pulling on the heartstrings of those who go by him. And he has a house. He lives in a home. So, but the sign doesn't say, hey, I'm broke, I'm homeless, I'm starving. His sign says anything helps. And people feel bad and they just give him money. That's the kind of guy who destroys our confidence in giving to charities. I don't give anything to any organized charity. I don't give money to people who beg on the street. They may need it, but I don't know that. I don't know if they're like this guy or not. There was a brilliant broadcaster. His real name was Bob Gigante. He was in New York City, and I used to listen to him on long radio would skip, hundreds of miles, and I could listen to him. He traded by the name of Bob Grant, and he interviewed this guy, Omar. Omar ran a school for beggars. He taught young people, young girls, how to sit in the train station, the bus station, with their head down and look really sad. And then a senior guy would walk over and say, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I need to get home." And My purse was just stolen. I don't have any money. I can't get home. My grandfather or my grandmother's dying, and I got to go see her. She's in the hospital. I don't have any money. And so how much do you need? Well, tickets, $60. Here's $60.
Oh, my God.
Omar taught people how to beg, lie, misrepresent, cheat. And as a result of that, who the heck wants to help anybody? Because of the equivalent of the internet trolls. Who wants to help people that are parasites? We used to want to help people who needed a hand up. We used to. We really wanted to. But there are so many liars, cheats, and thieves today. I don't trust people. Sorry to say it. Guineith?
Yeah, I would say, I would be inclined to agree with you. I don't give money to beggars. If I have somebody saying, I need a train fare, I'll say, fine, we'll go to the train station, I'll buy you a ticket. Usually they back down. If they say, I'm hungry, I'll say, fine, we'll go to a pie shop or a McDonald's and I'll buy you some food. So it's getting to the point where I hardly want to do that,
Right.
People have got to learn to listen to their gut, Vincent, and they've got to learn to, be a bit more aware of things happening around them.
Guineith, we're out of time. Thanks so much for being with us.